evening, everyone. This is Michael, and substituting for Tuya this evening. She's out of town, but I think she'll be back tomorrow to do the attracting money for hierarchical purposes meditation. So today we're going to begin a new nation, or a collection of nations, important. Great Britain, as the Tibetan refers to it. He doesn't so much refer to Northern Ireland. I think Ireland will eventually be a unified nation, and it will be under its own astrological and rheological signs. It will be under Virgo in the soul and Pisces in the personality, and that's quite different from Great Britain. Britain has the soul sign Gemini, and then the personality sign Taurus. So three at least of the second ray indicators are there when you consider Ireland and also Great Britain. The one that's missing there is Sagittarius, and that does not bring in the second ray. It brings in the sixth ray, which is also very important in the case, especially of Ireland. So I'd like to do just a little bit of reading here, and then I'd like us also to consider the unfortunate circumstances in Lebanon. I'm going to leave the development of the country, the discussion of that to Tuya when she can take it up, but I just want us to focus on that tremendous, so far it seems unexpected, explosion and the thousands that have been affected by it, whether it was accidental but preventable, as now seems the case, or whether there was some kind of malfeasance involved, some kind of deliberate ignition of the ammonium nitrate, which caused an incredible blast in a country that has long been troubled and has seen many wars, and also much attractiveness and beauty, even from the time of King Solomon and long before. So it's had a very checkered career, and I think the sixth ray is very strong. I think the fourth ray is strong, but he has not really given that to us yet. So let's look here a little bit, and not the entirety of it, of course, but a little bit about what the Tibetan calls Great Britain. He's not talking about the United Kingdom, as I've said, not the entirety of it. And there are 31 references to Great Britain in the book Discipleship in the New Age, rather the Destiny of the Nations, excuse me. And, you know, it would be good to go through all of them to make compilations on these various countries. They would not be long compilations, and even though, let's say, this book was written between 70 and 75 years ago, what we find is that there's still so much relevance because the zodiacal signs have not changed, apparently, and neither have the soul and personality ray changed. So whatever developments there may be, they will be within the range of those rays and signs, and under the indirect influences of the rulers of the signs and the rays that come through the various planets. So, it's a little bit more of a technical approach. We can do that with a number of the nations and not with others, because thus far DK has only given us more comprehensive information on the rather old nations, that have been around a long time. He didn't even really discuss China very much, a little bit, because there was such an upheaval and a revolution going on there. One had to see how it was going to work out. But we are told that Confucius will return to China, and no doubt he is a master at this time, and will create kind of a disturbance. As DK says, these disturbances are fleeting in the eyes of the soul, but frequently appalling from the personality perspective. Okay. So, in considering Great Britain, we note first that the ruling sign is Gemini, from the standpoint of the soul of the people. Interesting that he includes of the people. It has to do with something, profoundly humanitarian, and it has to do with the people who have settled in that part of the world. There's always an amazing magnetism that attracts certain types to certain locales. And the Taurus governs the material outer form of the nation. And let us somehow realize that that is what the personality is, in a certain sense. The material outer form of the nation, the living heart of the people is the soul sign and the soul ray. But it's a much more material side, a much more elemental side, when we're discussing the personality sign and ray. It is this factor that led her people to appear before the world under the symbol of John Bull, expressive of the British personality. He, there was a disciple in his group. I forget which one of the groups of 9 it might have been, but he was a Taurus, and he had a first-rate personality, and DK warned him of his tendency to knock people over along his way. He bowled them over, bowled them over, and it was not at all expressive of the second-ray soul that he was trying to cultivate. So the symbol of John Bull, expressive of the British personality. It has been thought by certain astrologers that Britain is ruled by Aries, and this is true of it as far as that small part which is called England is concerned. Well, England actually is quite a significant country in the collection of countries there. It's maybe it's the largest, actually. But the redcoats, as it were, as they were known in the American Revolution, that was a question of England. and of course red is directly associated with Aries. But I am dealing here, he says, with the empire as a whole, and not with a fraction of it. And I don't think we can really call it an empire anymore. Maybe it's more just to call it the British Commonwealth. You know, it's the emphasis has changed to that which is economic rather than military, especially after the end of World War II. That made quite a difference. It is the Gemini influence which has led to the constant movement and restlessness, note that adjective connected with Gemini, constant movement and restlessness of the British people that has led them to cross and recross the ocean and to stage a constant going out to the very ends of the earth, you know, Australia, New Zealand, India, all of those are closely related even now to Britain, although India certainly has her own, they all have their own independence, and certain cultures like the culture of India, you know, have distanced themselves a great deal from Great Britain, when once India was considered to be the jewel in the crown. It is the Gemini influence which has produced viewing the work of the nation from the personality or lower angle. Notice it's the lower angle, it's the dweller angle. The secret and often devious diplomacy and subtlety which has in the past distinguished Great Britain's political activity. And now, you know, he says a few things. Gemini people are often distrusted, and the Gemini effect along this line makes of Great Britain no exception. And I've just been amazed as we look at some of the political activity presently occurring, how many of the players are characterized by the Gemini sun, and not only in Great Britain or United Kingdom right now, but in the United States with its Gemini personality. So please forgive me if I've read some of this before, but it's good, I think, to bring it into focus. Such distrust has been warranted in the past, but is not justifiable now, for the nation is old, and that was, 70 some years ago, and experienced, and is fast learning the lessons which she has had to master. Although it says she, and yet we're told that Great Britain is a masculine nation, I think, along with Germany and France and some others that we can see in the compilation. As yet, from the higher angle, Gemini does not entirely control. That would be, basically what we learn is that even though Gemini is the soul sign, it can be captured, as it were, in its lower aspect by the personality and expressed as part of the material or personal kind of expression. Yeah, it can be expressed in a more selfish way. The higher way does not yet completely control, but it will as the second ray soul emerges, Gemini being a prominent second ray sign. And so only now is it struggling for expression, and we can wonder, has it succeeded? And or is it now against the John Bull tendencies, which are materialistic and have to do with ancient hereditary privilege, status, financial status, the caste system, and so forth. It is rearing its head again. For long ages, Taurus has led the way with its material aims, his acquisitive desires. It's interesting, unless that's a typo, maybe the word should be its, but he says his acquisitive desires, his arrogant will, and his blind moving forward towards the possession of that which has been desired. Like Taurus rushes blindly until Sagittarius directs, we are told, or until Gemini brings in such a versatile intelligence that selfish desire no longer rules completely. Pervasiveness and movement are two qualities with which Gemini and Taurus have dowered the race. And he does call it a race or a group of people, maybe not entirely a race physically, but maybe more psychologically. London, the heart center of the empire, or now the Commonwealth, let's say, is ruled spiritually by Leo and materially by Libra, and it is therefore the soul factor which links Great Britain to France, yes, with its Leo personality, and which should assist spiritually the Leo nature, of the French personality. Also, when you think about the magnificent drama that comes out of England, and especially let's look at Shakespearean days and Elizabethan culture and so forth, we see Leo everywhere. So many of the great actors and dramatists, and maybe the number one dramatist of all, Shakespeare, whatever he was or whoever he was really, is associated with London and with its Leo nature. It is not, however, the spiritual quality of this sign which dominates British policy, but primarily the Libra aspect, more personal, I guess. Great Britain regards herself as the preserver of the balance of power among the nations, and as one to mete out justice and indicate the right methods of law and order. Yet her Gemini nature at times offsets this, and let's just say, we have the possibility that any of these signs can be used in a proper manner, okay? The soul sign can be used negatively or positively. The personality sign, with its tendency a bit more towards materialism, but can still be used positively, and so it goes with the soul sign and personality sign of the leading city, London. So the Gemini nature at times offsets this right methodological approach, whilst Taurus frequently blinds her to the real issues. The blindness of Taurus is interesting because eventually it is a sign of great illumination and sight, but things begin where they begin, and the instinctual bull is filled with the power to veil the truth. It is the Leo aspect which links London to Berlin, the capital city there, but it is Leo in its more self-assertive aspect, and hence some of the difficulty, and hence also the close and not to be evaded relationship between London, Paris, and Berlin. A triangle of force which conditions Europe most potently. Is it so today? And I would say yes, even today it is so. It is between these three that the destiny of the race of men in the immediate future lies. And again the question arises, will the coming decisions be based upon the good of the whole or upon the good of the part? Well, you know, there's the possibility that I may have read this to you before, but if you're like me and you hear these things a second time, you have a chance to ponder more deeply. And I've seen more this time around. So, yep, I'll just, when I can, I will continue with this, and right now I will say that this is the end of let's see now, what reading is it? End of program of Souls of Nations program, and what day? The 8th of the 8th month. And let's say maybe, I don't know, maybe we begin again on the 15th of August, but maybe not. Anyway, we will finish Great Britain and as much about Russia as we can over the months, because it is necessary to look at three great nations in which social experiments are occurring, which will determine in many ways the long-term fate of humanity, even if this triangle, London, Paris, Berlin, is instrumental in terms of the immediate future, and especially as regards Europe and the European Union. Okay. Now, let's switch back. We want to realize that this idea of the redemption of the nations is all under the guidance of the head of the hierarchy, who takes it in a way straight from Sanat Kumara, Sanat Kumara having the shambolic first ray and being the one who stimulates right human relations between the nations, really right international relations. And the Christ, he can be visualized at the heart of every nation, promoting the love, wisdom, energy, which would, I think, be so useful in bringing us into a condition of a truly cooperative humanity. So we will pledge our cooperation to the Great Lord and to his hierarchy and to the emergence of the higher qualities of the various nations. Even that, I mean, even if the qualities were not, strictly speaking, the highest type of soul qualities, if there were an improvement, at least, in the expression of some aspect of the soul and soul ray and soul sign, and just the good qualities which develop in any nation, well, this would move the soul of humanity forward. So as we affirm our cooperation with the Christ, we'll think about that, about bringing those qualities which really elevate the various nations, bringing them to the fore, and therefore much to the advantage of a higher type of expression by the soul of humanity. So then, together, we have gathered in your name, Lord Maitreya, be with us. You know, and we might make the mistake of thinking, well, Lord Maitreya, the Christ, is so very Christian. How can other countries that are not based religiously and spiritually upon Christianity accept him? But no matter by what name we may call this great identity, he is still the same great identity. He's the head of the hierarchy, and he loves all human beings, irrespective of their religion, their religious philosophy, and so forth. He sees the deficiencies of all these concrete-minded systems, including the deficiencies of concrete-minded Christianity, which so many millions think you must adhere to if you're going to be related to the Christ. But it isn't true. So that when we see him, as it were, in the center of the earth, radiating the light and the love and the spiritual will from an imagined center of our globe, we know he's for everybody, and that in a way he replicates himself in every nation. I mean, the boundaries of nations will surely change. They have over many millennia. There's nothing permanent about the present boundaries of countries. The United States was the center of the old Atlantean civilization. It certainly wasn't called the United States in those days. Who knows what it was called? But so you kind of think there of the Golden Gate Bridge and the city of the Golden Gate, and you think of Atlantean demarcations of countries, and no doubt there were Lemurian demarcations as the land masses changed and moved and appeared and disappeared. Those are transient things, but whoever occupies the position of head of the hierarchy, his task is to bring the love wisdom to humanity. Ultimately, humanity will have its second ray soul and fourth ray personality. I believe that's pretty much the rays of the Occident. And right now, maybe the ongoing ray of humanity of the fourth creative hierarchy is the fourth, with manas represented by the fifth ray. So everything is in flux, everything is in mutation, and we need cooperation as never before. Now, some of this, of course, has to do with the pandemic, and it's hard to believe that this is a pandemic without purpose, because a universal epidemic is discussed in the teaching as a possibility, a kind of alternative way of dealing with human transgression. Sanat Kumara always has that alternative, and exactly what it's supposed to bring about. Some of the leading thinkers along the psychological and economic line, can kind of see where it could lead to a more cooperative humanity. Meanwhile, we have friction, we suffer. Hundreds of thousands are dying, and the Spanish flu, misnamed, of course, the Spanish flu, but that's how it's known, eliminated 50 million people. Of course, there were no antibiotics, but we're getting to that point again where antibiotics are proving to be less effective than heretofore because of their indiscriminate use. And besides, we're dealing with a virus, and many antibiotics are simply ineffective when it comes to viruses. So we're suffering along together, and things happen in different countries, overwhelming the medical system, depriving families of their loved ones, and sometimes just blasts, explosions, pent-up energy exploding and bringing great suffering. Let's concentrate on Lebanon for a moment. It's ammonium nitrate, it's fertilizer, but it existed in a huge quantity in a way that it should not have been stored, and whether there was some kind of deliberate ignition of it or just it spontaneously ignited in the heat of storage, that still has to be determined, but it's caused many, many deaths, and thousands have been affected, and the city of Beirut just isn't the same, and now the anger comes, and the revenge, and the demand for the death of those responsible. So let's, for a few moments, send some kind of calming energy into that situation, and the light of reason, so that we can make sure that such things don't happen again, and so that the suffering can be as quickly reduced as may be possible. We'll spend some silent moments there. Feeding in the positive energy into a country torn by not only the blast but by many contending religious forces that are highly frictional with each other. And, let us, instead of hatred and revenge and out of control anger and rioting, in the wake of this tremendously destructive event, let's see the mind as it is in Christ applied to the situation. The next 5 years before the great conclave can be likely fraught with all kinds of antagonisms and the jockeying for worldly power, for selfish power. We have to realize that that kind of interplay is very likely, rather than truly loving, sharing, peaceful, cooperative interplays. There's so much cleansing to be done. So whatever we're doing on the outer plane, if we can hold our esoteric point of view as a point of light within a greater light, as a strand of loving energy within the stream of love divine, if we can be a point of sacrificial fire, all on the inner planes, think of yourself that way, and as you cooperate with your groups within the new group of world servers, we can help to offset the panic, the uncertainty, the explosion of sixth ray forces that feel that they're losing everything near and dear to them from a passing civilization which they don't know is passing. As educators, we have to point the way to a greater future lying on ahead. And this will not be easy on us. We'll be tested now. And for some of us, many years of discipleship training will be put to the test. And many ways to work. There are many ways to work. And one of the principal ways is to evoke the souls of nations, really all one soul, the soul of humanity, and cooperative outer action from behind the scenes where we can really work. let us sound together the mantram of unification, which tells us how things really are and how we must work together to confirm the ideas expressed here. The sons of men are one, and I am one with them. I seek to love, not hate. I seek to serve and not exact due service. I seek to heal, not hurt. Let pain bring due reward of light and love. Let the soul control the outer form and life and all events, and bring to light the love that underlies the happenings of the time. Let vision come and insight. Let the future stand revealed. Let inner union demonstrate and outer cleavages be gone. Let love prevail. Let all men love. I think with all the stress that humanity is suffering now, we are meant to begin really to think about the other person, the other nation. We're meant to see the other as ourselves. We're meant to follow the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It has seemed like very little would help to force humanity or encourage humanity to live in that way. But maybe the great suffering of the pandemic and the recognition of unjust racial relations, and maybe the loss of many things that depend upon the financial system to acquire, at least presently they do. Maybe this will awaken humanity. Until the change can really come. It won't come overnight, and the externalization of the hierarchy is not a sudden thing either. It moves slowly, here and there, in the places where it must happen, and prepares the way for the coming of the Christ, when the people become sufficiently receptive to that idea that they will share, that they will insist on a measure of peace, that they will clean house and sweep away those extra devils which moved in when they were not paying attention. So let us sound the great invocation, and then we'll close with great invocation number 1. But for the moment, the invocation that we are accustomed to. Thank you, everyone, for meditating together, and we will close now with the first of the great invocations, that is looking forward to the coming of peace and goodwill and sharing, and the cleanliness that is next to godliness. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, and we'll seek to evoke money for hierarchical purposes.